Alright, you guys, welcome to today's video. I wanted to do a video talking about what we can do to work smarter, not harder when it comes to highlighting. There are a few different things we can do to help our speed and also not overthink it and do too many foils, because a lot of times we do get in that habit and we don't necessarily need to be doing a full baby light every single time. So my first tip for this is start at the nape of the neck. I always start in the back when I'm working alone, specifically because if her back processes quicker, I can just dip her head in the back after I pull those foils, rinse those while the front still processes, and it's going to be a lot easier than trying to rinse foils with a squirt bottle if you start in the front. So you can see that I started at the bottom of the nape of the neck, and I actually just worked in one section, and I just went back to back to back until I felt like the head started to widen, and then I'm gonna start bricklaying. But by doing bigger foils and bigger sections just for that nape is a little more narrow, you're gonna be able to work smarter, not harder, not doing one foil on the left, one on the right, one in the middle, until you get like halfway up the head. That's gonna help speed your time up. Just use a bigger foil and take that whole section as just one foil. I'm also using a wider color brush. If you have seen our color brushes, this is all in the Essentials collection, and this is typically used for like root retouches all over colors, things like that, because it covers a lot of ground, but you can also use it when highlighting to cover ground a lot quicker, especially when you're doing the larger foil sections like we just talked about. Now that I'm past that more narrow section in the nape and her head is getting a little bit wider as we work our way up, I am going to start pivoting and bricklaying and doing left, right, middle, but I do feel like bricklaying is super beneficial for saving time as well once you get to this point, because you're not doing like a steady pattern of like 2 to the left, 2 to the middle, 2 to the right. You're just kind of bricklaying every other section, because some may need more highlights than others, just kind of depending on like the density of their hair and how it grows out. So I feel like kind of like hopping around and doing bricklay is the best way to cover the most ground and get the best results. Okay, so a big thing we're going to talk about in this video is taking thicker stitches, and that's going to help you get a little more dimension and variation, help the blondes pop. We're not just doing a full head of baby lights like we used to a few years ago. We've kind of moved on from that, but I still like to incorporate baby lights around the hairline, because this is the section that you really can't skip out on. You've got to do those packed baby lights back to back, sometimes even slices, to give your client that bright hairline. So around the entire hairline, from ear to ear, especially the money piece in the front, we're going to be doing these tighter baby lights, finer sections to get her really bright in the hairline. But after that, we are going to transition into a thicker stitch pattern in the interior of the hair, and I'll show you guys what I mean when we get back to that section. All right, I'm starting to work more into the interior of the hair, and I'm going to make my sections a little bit of a thicker stitch pattern like we talked about. So you can see here that I have a little more variation, and this is going to give us a little more dimension. It's going to make the highlights in the front stand out where they are a little bit tighter. I think having dimension is a good thing, even if your client wants to be a bright blonde. This is going to make it look so it's not flat, not dull, because having a little dimension honestly makes your client feel brighter if you do it the right way. So one way you can do it is by doing these thicker stitch patterns towards the back. I'm still taking fine sections so that everything saturates well. I'm just kind of doing a bigger stitch than like a tiny baby light, and then I'm just doing that all over, whereas my baby lights are tinier and tighter around the hairline. And then we're also going to be adding in low lights to add dimension, which I know some blonde clients get scared of, but it's a great way to add depth and make those blondes pop without them really noticing.
Sometimes, but you're making me nervous. No, I've realized that I can't live without you. All my friends reassure that it's obvious, and that maybe I'm wasting my time, but I
So I prefer to add a low light in after the head's been foiled, so I'm not skipping any sections that need to be blonde. So what we're doing here is going back through and doing just kind of like a tiny micro weave, and we're adding in a low light, and I like to match this to the root color we're going to be doing. So we're probably going to use 7s for her root shadow. So we're doing a 7 NB here, and even though this could seem scary to your client, like you're adding dark into their hair, trust me, this is just going to give it that little pop of dimension that's going to make the blondes actually feel brighter. And you can see that she also has some teasy lights at the ends of her hair. We did do some dropout sections with lightener just to kind of pop out some of those ends that needed a little refreshing. So all in all, we did 3 different techniques: the highlight, the low light, and the teased out ends. All right, guys, we are back at the bowl. You can see how incredible she lifted. I'm so excited to shadow her. We're using Redken Shades of Q 7NB with just a tiny bit of 7NA. I like to add NAs just because it helps kind of cool down anything that did lift warm, but she did lift pretty well, so I'm happy with it. And 7NB is one of my favorite go-to root shadows. She's really light naturally. I don't know if you guys can tell on camera, but she's like a 7, almost 8. And I prefer to match their root shadow either to their natural level or just like a level darker so that it fades out really naturally. So that's what we're doing here, and I am using one of our new brushes again, and this is going to be like the best brush to use at the bowl because you're going to be able to apply and then comb through right there. So it's just a really accurate way to do a root shadow and not have to use too many tools. So I am just slowly shadowing that down. A shadow is like 1.5 inches, sometimes 2 inches. It's really nothing crazy, and it's just going to give her a really natural blend so that her own hair kind of grows in really naturally, but she still feels really blonde. The nice thing about the technique we used where we did the thicker stitch of highlights in the back and the tighter ones towards the hairline is you can visually see where that bright hairline is if you look at the way she lifted. So that way it's going to give us a visual on where we need to apply our shadow to begin with, which is in the interior, and then everything that's brighter around the hairline, we're going to wait till the very last like 2 to 3 minutes, gently tap it, which is like literally a tap. It's not really dragging it down at all, just to kind of soften it a little bit, and then we're going to be good to go. So typically I like to apply this interior and I like to leave it on for about 10 minutes-ish, just depending on the client, and then after that I'll do the last 2 to 3 minutes in the hairline, and then I'm going to tone. Okay, the root shadow has been rinsed out, and now we are toning everything all together. We are using 9NB, 9GI, 9P. This is one of my favorite combinations for a blonde that wants to be bright, but also a little bit softer. One of my favorite go-tos. You just can't go wrong with NB, GI, or P, honestly. After she was dry, we are adding 2 rows of J-tied hair extensions, and this is her final result. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.